Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, the comeback coach, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life. Now, here's your host, Joe Rivera.
What's up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Reforge Your Life Show. I'm your host, Joe Rivera. And here at the Reforge Your Life Show, we like to show you that a comeback is more than possible. And today I'm super excited about bringing her to the show. She's a friend. She's an awesome speaker. And, man, you guys are going to love the energy that this lady's going to bring to the show today, man. She's a chief appreciation strategist at Grategy. Lisa Ryan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming through.
It is awesome to be here with you, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you again. Man, I've heard your story, but I know not everybody in the audience may have heard it, and I can't tell it anywhere close to as good as you can. So please share with the audience your story, a little bit about who you are, and let them know more about Lisa Ryan.
Sure. Well, I guess the reforging my life part started in 2009. Went on a fire walk, started to do some gratitude practice with my friends. Things were going swimmingly for about a year. And a year into it is when my very lucrative medical sales job was eliminated via group conference call, with 12 of us getting canned at the same time. And I said on that day, which was October 12th, 2010, no company will ever do that to me again, complete with finger point. And I started my company on that day. So a couple years later, still continuing my gratitude practice, in August of 2011, my dad had a stroke. And then for the next 11 years, I kind of took him through all of those processes as far as moving him out, putting him into assisted living, having him have COVID in the one facility that he was at in 22 or in 21, and then losing him in 22. And I really don't think that any of this would have, my attitude wouldn't have been the same had I not had that gratitude practice. Because even when life is kind of falling down all around you, you don't have a job, or you're watching one of your elderly parents suffer, or all the things that go along with that, when you can find the good, it's always there. It's just a matter of building that habit, really. So since then, since 2010, I have felt that my mission is really to go out and spread the word about the power of gratitude in business and in life. And that's what I do. My company is Grategy, which is gratitude and strategy mushed together.
I love it. I love it. Gratitude is so important. It's so powerful. It shifts perspective in life and energy. And that's awesome. And first off, I want to say my deepest condolences to your father. I know what that's. I completely understand. I lost my mom, so I know what it's like to lose a parent, and it's never easy. So, for you to overcome that, it just shows strength in your character, the resilience. Coming from someone who's been there, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, to lose your job too, and have to bounce back from that, along with going through the grieving process, is not easy. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that struggle was like? I know gratitude helped you bounce back, but what was it like being in those moments? What feelings were you going through, and what thoughts were going through your mind at those?
Well, when I first lost my job, I had joined a company where I was doing some contract training. And then about 2 years into it, I got fired for the fourth time in my life because we saw things a little bit differently. Um,
Yeah.
The owner of the company, I don't know if you're still there or if I should still keep talking.
No, I'm here.
Okay. um, the owner of the company wanted me to, sell her services. And I was kind of under the impression that, hey, if I'm going to sell anybody's services straight commission, it's going to be mine. So we didn't see quite eye to eye. And so I continued for about a year trying to build my speaking business. And right before I starved to death, I joined a contract training company that, if you're not familiar with that, contract trainers will go out and do classes like, dealing with difficult people, having difficult conversations. I did HR law. So you're traveling a lot. I did 120 programs that year. On one hand, it saved my bacon. On the other hand, I also missed a lot, birthday parties, and I missed my best friend's mother's funeral because I was on the road. But I think the lesson in all of that again, no matter what happens, you just keep on figuring it out. If I wasn't going to be getting the keynotes and the speaking engagements that were paying the big bucks, I was going to do contract training, because that would also kind of get my reps up there so that I became better and better what I'm doing. Because when you're speaking 127 times a year, you can read an audience pretty well. And then when my speaking business started taking off, I've really defined what I wanted to do. Now, the nice thing about being an entrepreneur, the good and the bad thing about it, the good thing is that I had the time to take care of my dad. The bad news is, or the bad thing is, that when you're an entrepreneur, nobody in your family really believes that you have a job. So they just assume no, you're going to take care of everything. So that was a pretty big weight. And on the other hand, I wouldn't have traded anything, because I got to build some of the best memories with my dad. I had a great time, and I was able to have a relationship with him even at the end, that when he first got COVID, which was in January of 21, no, in January of 22. That's right. And basically I watched that decline for about a year. And after he passed, and I went to grief counseling, which I highly recommend for anybody that's lost somebody, because it was tremendously helpful. But I was kind of wondering, like, why am I not feeling as bad as I thought that I would when my dad passed? And the grief counselor told me, because I had already spent a year in anticipatory grieving, because I knew that there was, he was never going to basically pee on his own again. He was never going to be able to walk again. And so it was just a really slow decline, and being able to adjust that again with the help of therapy, and afterwards with the help of a grief therapist, to just kind of get me through it. Plus I have some really wonderful friends that were there to lean on when I needed them. And I think that that's the other blessing. We look for the good, but we don't just sit around and wait for good things to happen. We go out and we pursue what we want, knowing that if we keep doing the work, good things happen.
Yeah. Man, that you dropped a few gems there. And I just, for the audience listening, I mean, so important, a few things you mentioned there, right? Number one, you spoke about when it came to building the business, and how you didn't really worry about the how. You removed the how from the situation, and you kept moving forward. That's so important. I know the most successful people I've come across, in this journey, we just don't worry about the how. We remove the how from situation, because we know if we're walking and living in our purpose, that how's going to come into place, right? And you also mentioned, the power of repetition, right? Because you were waiting for the speaking gigs to come in, but you were doing conferences, because you knew that you needed those reps. And repetition is the mother of skill, yeah. It's so
Yeah.
important. And you know, when you spoke about what you went through with your father, and it's so important for people out there who go through that process to allow themselves to grieve. Because what happens is a lot of people, you know, they'll lose someone close to them, and they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to process it, right? So one way for sure is you know, going through counseling and, you know, allowing yourself to learn what, you know, what the grieving process is going to look like. Because for everyone it's different, right? Everyone grieves differently, but trying to handle it on your own and just thinking it's going to go away is not the answer. You know,
Yeah.
you have to take action on being able to allow yourself to grieve that loved one. So I'm curious though, Lisa, what are some of the tools for the people who are listening out there and who don't know? What are some of the tools that you learned through that grieving counseling that could help someone else who's going through a similar situation, or you know, or a tool that you learned that can helps you in other ways of life also?
Yeah, well, besides keeping my gratitude practice, my gratitude journal every morning, I also have a practice called the ABCs of gratitude, which usually I use to fall asleep at night, you know, because you got all those voices going around in your head trying to keep you up. And I just pick a random letter in the alphabet and I think about, you know, what I'm grateful for. And I go in alphabetical order until I'm asleep. Well, there was one day, it was a couple months after my dad died, and I was having a really hard time. And I had taken myself out for a facial because, you know, self care is important. And as I was laying on the table getting my face done, I just started going through the ABCs of gratitude, but I did it about my dad, you know, about the fact that A, he was always there, and H, his wonderful hugs, and B, his blue eyes, and S, the way that his smile lit up the room. And I was just going through the alphabet one at a time, just thinking about all of those things. And when I got to Z, I realized that I had zero regrets. And that was this moment that was so magical because I realized that, you know, even going through everything that I did with my dad, you know, I spent the amount of time with him that I needed to. And actually, the very last words that he said to me after being unresponsive for 2 days when I went in to spend time with him and I was leaving, and I said, "I love you, Dad." And he opened up his eyes and he looked at me and he said, "I love you too." And he kissed me. And those were, you know, 3 days later, he left the planet. So, um, when I just, you know, there was just that really magical moment, and the ABCs of gratitude, like I said, it can help you sleep, but when you're grieving, to go through all of those wonderful memories that you have with that person, and hopefully, you know, you will be able to get to Z and realize that you have zero regrets.
Yeah. Wow. I love that one. I mean, I'm big on gratitude. It's something that got me through after losing my mom physically, and it's what helped me be able to build a relationship with her spiritually. And gratitude also got me through my darkest times with substance abuse. Uh, but man, the gratitude ABCs, Lisa, I might have to borrow that because I love that process. That's powerful, you know, because you hear gratitude journal, you hear, you know, moments of gratitude always. I mean, that you hear it often. But that gratitude ABCs, that's a game changer. That's a real way that's a real powerful way to be able to bring gratitude into your life. But for the listeners out there, man, that's she just dropped a gem. I hope everybody picked that up, man, because that's something that you could utilize, put in your toolbox, and take action on that today. That's not something you have to wait for.
Well, and when I share about it in my programs, I use it as a drug-free way to fall asleep. And I will say, there are going to be some days that you will go through the alphabet, twice. But most of the time it's 5 or 6 letters and you are fast asleep. And when we look at the research behind gratitude, it's been shown that people who have a regular practice of gratitude are awake less time before they fall asleep. They sleep more soundly and they awaken more refreshed. So when we do something like the ABCs of gratitude at night, it puts us in that positive frame of mind that can, really help us, our health, because we all know how important sleep is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Man, that's definitely a game changer. And it's true. Sleep is vital, right? For someone for energy, for success, for living in general, right? You got to have rest. And there's a lot of people out there who struggle with that. And I'm so glad that you mentioned a drug-free way to help someone sleep, because so many people are out there and trying to use different, drugs to be able to sleep with. That's not the answer.
Right.
Because it's not gonna it doesn't it's not productive for your life to have that drug and depend on that drug to go to sleep. And there's ways like Lisa just dropped the gem for that. You can go to sleep without sleep drugs. There's such a need out there for that. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's so important.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, so when after your father passes, you're going through the gratitude practice. What was it where you had that aha moment that, you know what, I can't do this on my own. I do have to go and get help uh, with this grieving process. I'm not gonna, this isn't something I'm gonna take on myself. I'm gonna go ask for help, because there's a lot of people out there who struggle with being able to ask for help when it's going through a grieving process, when it's going through substance abuse, when it's going through building a business. I mean, people have, an issue with allowing the ego to get in the way of them
Right.
asking for help. So what was that moment for you?
Well, for a while, because my friends had gone through it with me for so long. I mean, he had the stroke in 2011. I moved him into assisted living in 2012. Then I moved him back home in 2013 because he wanted to be at home. He was still looking for love. And I did everything to take care of him, as much as I could, bringing in help for that. And then when the senior center dropped him off and he took a walk and ended up 5 miles from home on a 90-degree day. And because he had aphasia because of the stroke, when they asked him who he was, he couldn't speak. He
Mm.
couldn't answer. So basically, I couldn't find him for 2 days. So my friends were with me through all of that. And especially when it got really hard, sometimes I just felt like I was being a burden, like, oh my goodness, is there anything else that I need to talk about, besides burdening my friends with all what I felt was like the same story over and over again, as I was processing it. And that's when I realized that, there's people out there that's their job to help. And talking to that neutral third party, um, that doesn't, they don't judge you, they don't know you. You can just talk, you can scream, you can cuss, you can do whatever you want, to let it out. And that, in therapy, that helped a lot, because there was also some ancillary stuff that went on with my siblings after my father died. When you hear the stories about bad behavior after death,
Mm.
yeah, I got to go through that too. And so, with the grief counselor, though, they reached out to me because my dad was in hospice towards the end. I put him in hospice basically because I wanted him to eat real food.
Mhm.
I was actually hoping that he would graduate from hospice, but that didn't actually happen. So when he passed, um, the hospice, they reached out to me, which again, I'm grateful for. And, and they reach out to, I'm sure, everybody. And I don't know what the percentage of people are that accept the help, but I'm really glad I did. I made an appointment one-on-one, and this woman talked to me for about an hour. The first time I went in there, that's when I learned about anticipatory grief. And then when I started going to the grief groups, and the first time that I was there, I didn't even feel like I really belonged, because you had,
Mm.
people that had just lost their spouse of 30 and 50 and 60 years, or they lost their sibling that they were super close to and all this. And it's like, I was the only one there who had lost a parent. And, but then I was like, you know what? My grief is just as real as everybody else's in this room. And I'm going to go through the practice and, share about my dad. The other thing that I had a lot of, blessing with is the executive director at the nursing home that my dad was at for that last year, because I could walk into Patrick's office and we could laugh and tell stories, and I could cry, and I could be angry, and I could do all of this stuff. And he was such a source of comfort for me, which, being an executive director of a busy nursing home like he was, just the fact that he made the time for me, and it made me feel like I was the only person that counted in that moment. And that was, to have somebody like that, that's a super blessing.
That is huge blessing, especially in a situation. It's a huge blessing to have someone that makes you feel seen, makes you feel that's special in any time, but especially in a time of grieving, and going through those motions that we go through when we're grieving. So man, I'm so. I mean, you were speaking about how glad you are you did it. I'm glad you did it too, because man, what you're doing out there now, is special, was needed, and God's using you as a vessel to be able to give it back, and be able to help people appreciate gratitude and know how powerful it is. So, man, I'm thankful for you going through that also.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Uh, when you were going through this process, right? There's belief systems that have to get cracked through to overcome that adversity. I'm a big believer in that. And because these limited beliefs that we have, they're a part of us. They're gonna come up all the time. But what are some of those limited beliefs that you cracked through going through this adversity? What was that belief system like before? And what did you turn it into?
Well, it's really that daily practice of gratitude. I mean, I have a notebook on my nightstand when I wake up in the morning. The first thing that I do before I even take that long walk down the hall is to write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. And, and some mornings it's difficult. Some mornings I just don't feel like it. And I do it anyway. And sometimes if I can only get to 3 instead of 5, that's okay too. But when you're going through like what I did with my dad, it was the one thing about seeing him is, there's so many pros and cons. Like they would not leave him in his room by himself because they knew that he was going to fall out of bed. That's just what he did. He thought that he could still walk, and he would fall out of bed. So they kept him by the nursing station basically 24/7 so they could keep an eye on him. That made me mad because, of course, I wanted my dad to get a good night's sleep in his bed. But then he became the third floor West greeter. And every person that came into the third floor, my dad would be waving at them and say, "Hi, how are you?" And his blue eyes would light up and he would have this smile that a lot of times in nursing homes you just don't see with the residents. And so he just kind of became this joyous fixture that I thought was funny. And then he also, but he would have really difficult days. Again, the dementia would take over and he could be, upside down and naked quicker than you could, that you could throw a stick at. And there was one day that I probably shouldn't be sharing this, but I just thought that it was funny. The one of the days he chose to be naked, just refused to keep his clothes on all day long, was Mother's Day in 2022. So if you think about the number of people that came to visit their mother that day, they got to see my dad in all of his glory. So I just, and I think that when you just look at the funny, silly, stupid things that just make you giggle, I'm sure there was people that probably weren't giggling about seeing a naked old guy. But that's what a gratitude practice does, is it allows you to cut through all of the woe is me, why is this happening to me? Why can't my dad be healthy? All of this, and the other affirmation that I had that I did for a year is that, quick is better than slow. I mean, when it comes to, it was such a painful process and I just kept praying. I'm like, quick is better than slow. God, please take him, so that he's no longer in pain and stuff, even though I didn't want to lose him. And it was so slow. It was slow, slow, slow. And I got to really enjoy time with my dad, and I would go during meal times and I would feed him and I would bring him his stamp collections and he would go through those and we would just relive that as much as he could talk and stuff. And, but then when it got quick, it got super quick. I say that his light went out on December 9th was when he became unresponsive. December 11th is when he spoke his last words to me. And then December 14th is when he left. So it's, again, putting things in perspective of finding the funny. Maybe you're not finding the joy because it's difficult when you're going through it, but just find the funny, find the ridiculous, and just give yourself to make yourself laugh.
Yeah, and that's so powerful, and it's so important because I'm a big believer in, when the more we keep the people that we lose, the memory of them alive, that we're keeping their spirit alive through us, because I believe that the people that leave us behind end up living through us spiritual.
Yeah.
That's something I truly believe. Because there's not a day that passes that I don't feel my mom's spirit.
Right.
And when you're able to do it through something where you have a funny memory, like you're saying, that's good for the heart, man. It warms up the soul. Or when you think of a loving memory that you have with those loved ones, that's what they want. They want you to remember them for those good times. They want you to be able to allow them to live through you. And it's so important to help get you through, that grieving moment, like that gratitude, like you mentioned, is so important. But and it all connects, the gratitude in those memories that are behind. And you mentioned something else that is so important, so powerful, and it just shows the amazing, an amazing trait that you have in your character, and how selfless you were to ask, for God to not have your father suffer, and to take him so that he can remove that suffering from your father. And it's so important because there's so many, people that go through that turmoil of, losing someone slowly like that. And they're like, no, I don't want them to go. I don't want them to go. And that's a selfish act, because the other person is suffering. So, you allowing yourself to sit back and say, you know what? No, God, this isn't right. my loved one's not supposed to suffer like this. Please remove the suffering and take him and let him be with you. I'll suffer and go through the pain of losing that person. I'll go through that, and I'd rather take that pain than the person I love taking it. Lisa, that is, I mean, just shows such strength in your character, and that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, I, I'm I want to know though, like, I it's obvious gratitude is up here on your core values. Uh, what other core values would you say that you've you've grown into through the process of not only, losing your father, but losing your job and having to start all over again? Um, what are some of the other core values that you gained along this journey that you lean into now when it comes to, because listen, for the listeners out there, that this ride to success isn't a straight ride to success. There's gonna be bumps in the road. Shit's gonna get fucked up. It's how you navigate through those bumps in the road is where the magic is. That's where the growth happens. So what are some of those core values that you lean into when those curveballs do come and knock you to your knees and that life throws up?
Well, the good and the bad is that I tend to be a little bit of a workaholic because I really, really love what I do. I mean, I am extraordinarily persistent. Actually, I just closed a speaking engagement a couple of weeks ago, from a association I've been calling on for 7 years. So, but by the same token, even when things get bad, I know that even when it doesn't feel like anything's happening, that I'm working, 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 and nothing's happening, I just know that if I just continue, because to me, it never feels like work because I absolutely love what I do. And I love marketing, and I love the whole process of connecting with people and starting that relationship. And by the same token, in 2020, I had more business on December 31st of 2019. I had more business going into 2020 than I had done in 2019. I mean, it was going to be by far my biggest and best year. And then, of course, the pandemic happened and all of that stuff flew off the calendar. So at that point, I was really lost. I mean, and I put it out. I have a gratitude thought of the week that's been coming out every week since 2011. And I asked my subscribers, I said, I need a hobby. What do I do? Because there's no work going on right now. And one of my subscribers said about adult paint by numbers.
Mm.
And I said, well, that sounds like fun. So over the next couple months, I think I did literally like 45 paint by numbers. And it was all like Monet and Cezanne and all of these beautiful adult paint by numbers. And then I had all of this paint left over. And I said, gee, I wonder if I can actually paint for myself. And I painted this tree frog. And I couldn't sleep that night because I could not believe that I painted something that beautiful. Like I discovered like art runs in my family, but I thought that it passed me by. And that acrylic painting that I ended up not only doing my own, but I was taking lessons on YouTube from a couple different artists to go through the process. And just that creativity, allowing myself to play and be creative was really a lifesaver. Because the thing with painting, if you've never done acrylic painting before, there's a point where you're painting and it's just ugly. It is so ugly and it's so flat, and you're looking at this painting going, it's never going to be good. This is just ugly. And then you just keep working it, and you keep working it, you keep blending it, and you keep adding more, and you keep adding more, and then you keep blending and stuff. And all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, I did that. you know, and it all comes together. Like with anything else, you have to know when to let the painting go. Like at the very end, it's like, okay, Lisa, time to sign the painting, because then we know we're done.
Yeah.
But just to, again, let the inner child come out and play. I love reading, giving myself the gift. A lot of times what I read, of course, is nonfiction, but when I give myself the gift of fiction, that is another just kind of an escape. And I think allowing ourselves to get out of the grind of the everyday, and out of work mode, to just experience the rest of life and hang with friends and do things with my husband and, all of those, it kind of leads to a little bit more balance.
And you mentioned quite a few different core values that you could have there, and things that you lean into to be able to help you get through those difficult times. I mean, time with your husband's family is important. Finding a new hobby. Everyone who's listening, I mean, a hobby and something where you could let your hair down and go play. Because sometimes as adults, a lot of times, something happens as we get older. We stop, people stop using their imagination. And man, our imagination is so important for our success, to be able to visualize what it is you want in life, to create the life that you would love. You have to have that imagination in play and be able to see things. And the way you continue to build on that imagination is through hobbies and being creative and using your imagination. Lisa's talking about doing it through painting. I mean, there's so many different ways. Someone else could find it through writing. Someone else could find it through reading, which she mentioned also. So there's so many different ways that you could be creative and use your imagination. Don't ever stop using your imagination. I mean, it's so important for your success. Lisa, I'd love for you to tell the audience where they can find you and, what it is you're doing now.
Well, my website is lisaryanspeaks.com. I am also pretty prolific on LinkedIn. I post there regularly. I have my Manufacturers Network podcast that comes out every Monday. I have a Cracking the Retention Code newsletter that comes out every Wednesday. So you can find me there, like I said, or at my website. And I have, not only my keynote speaking and training coming up, but I'm doing several projects. I have a whole culture initiative with one organization that I'm working with. They've purchased a lot of companies in order to grow, which has led to a lot of culture clashes. And I am helping them to balance that out. And then I have another really interesting project. I'm working with an association, and we'll be interviewing their members and sponsors just as a way for them to get to know each other and the different services, so that they'll use that on social media. With having a podcast and getting used to interviewing people, it just becomes like a really fun way to get to know people. And so it'll be interesting. That project is starting soon too.
And talk about the jack of all trades, girl. You got a lot of, you got it all going on there. A lot. Well, that's going to be in the show notes, guys. So everyone who wants to find Lisa, you'll have all that information there. Lisa, a question that I ask all my guests, few questions. Number one is, what brings your spirit alive?
Well, my church to begin with. I love I go to a mega church that has basically, it feels like I'm going to a Christian rock concert every week, because the music is just full and lively and great to hear. But also, a lot of times if I'm doing meditation, I like doing yoga. Because yoga, you can't do anything else except it's just you and the breath when you are doing yoga. But I also find a lot on YouTube, when I'm trying to go to sleep. They have 8-hour sleep meditations that you can have. You can pick a meditation on anything from, getting rid of emotional baggage to prosperity and everything in between. So there's so many. And of course, my bookshelves are filled with books that bring me back to getting grounded.
Love that. Love that, man. And man, there's something powerful about going to sleep to that sleep meditation, because it just hits that subconscious. And we don't realize that even though we're sleeping, we're still able to, it still connects and sticks to our mind. So I'm glad you shared that, because that's so important. And man, there's something about that church community, right? Where it just brings you alive. When you hear the music and the community, and whatever you believe out there, God, the infinite intelligence. I mean, connecting to something greater than yourself and believing that that's going to help you unlock your fullest potential is so important, guys. And building a community with other people who have, the similar mindset with that, and also believe in something similar to what you believe. So
Yeah.
important. And that power of community, right, Lisa, is so vital for success.
Yes, it is.
And when you hear the word purpose, what comes to mind?
When I first discovered, I had wanted to be a professional speaker since I took my first Dale Carnegie class in 1987. But I didn't know what I was going to speak about. I mean, I was in sales at the time, but I really didn't want to do sales. I was doing some network marketing, but again, didn't feel called to do that. And when I started my gratitude practice, I knew to the core of my being that was the message that I was supposed to bring. So when it comes to purpose, it's like, changing the world one thank you at a time, just getting people to really understand the power of gratitude and how it can not only help ourselves and our perspective, but it can help with our health benefits. I mean, your immune system, your heart, your stress level, your ability to sleep. It helps your relationship with others outside the workplace. So you have better relationships with your family and your friends and your loved ones. And then we take that to the workplace, where we can create a workplace culture where people are excited to be there and you're making a difference. And I feel very strongly that really is my purpose and why I do what I do.
Of that. I mean, you find that purpose. Yeah. I mean, you know it. You feel it in your heart and soul. It's so obvious, and don't ignore that. Don't ignore that pull when it comes, that tugging when it comes, to be able to go lean into that purpose. So, Lisa, when you hear the word reforge, what comes to mind with that?
Funny. Remember, I spent 7 years in the welding industry. So when I hear reforge, I go right to a couple months ago, I got to go to a brand new forging facility where it was the technology was everywhere, and like this big buckets of molten metal are going overhead and going and making pipes and stuff. It was fantastic. So I think about it, and really, because I love being in manufacturing and around people that are passionate about making things that nobody else on the planet thinks about. I know that just that spark that happens, in the forging process, not only does it make a lot of the stuff that we see every day, but it also gives us the opportunity to reforge our lives and to create what we want out of it.
Love that. Love that. And love that you picked that up from the welding industry.
Yep.
So Lisa, what's one thing that the audience doesn't know about you that you like to do for fun?
Oh boy. I mean, I love to travel, which helps with my speaking because I get to go to really cool places. But I think the thing that is that I have never lived outside of Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland, Ohio. I have traveled all over the country and a few international trips, but there's something about coming home and coming home to Cleveland that I love, to my husband and my 2 cats, that is just really grounding for me. And yes, I love being a native Clevelander.
Proud to be where you're from. I love it.
Yep.
Love it. Love it. And so the last question, if someone out there, because there's somebody out there right now today that's struggling, and whether it's to put their life back together, their business back together, there's so many different reasons, right? But someone's looking to reforge their life. What's one piece of advice, one tool you could give someone that's looking to reforge their life and they don't know where to start?
Go to the store, get a notebook, preferably one without dates on it, put it on your nightstand, and when you wake up in the morning, write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. Do that every day for 30 days to make it a habit. At the end of 30 days, don't say, hey, I did it for 30 days and I don't have to do it anymore. But build that habit of looking for the good. Because again, when you look for the good, you can always find it.
Absolutely. I love that. How come I had a feeling you were going to say something to do with gratitude? So, Lisa, thank you so much for coming through. This was awesome. I mean, I knew your energy was going to be through the roof, and you exceeded expectations even more. So thank you again for coming. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for everybody listening and watching, thank y'all for coming through and checking this out. And don't forget, I'm going to ask for the favor that I always ask for. LFSS, like, follow, subscribe, and share. Because there's somebody out there today that's not watching this, not listening to this, and they're struggling to get their life back on track. They're struggling to put their business back together, and they don't know where to start. And you could save their life, you could save their business, you could save their relationships. So many different ways you could save somebody by sharing this. So please don't forget to share it. And don't forget, stay productive, stay profitable, and stay blessed.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.